At the launch event for my wife's consulting firm, she called me her trial husband and unexpectedly handed me divorce papers in front of everyone, leaving the guests shocked. What she didn't realize was that I owned the building we were standing in, the software her firm depended on, the credit lines keeping the lights on every single pillar her shiny new empire rested on. I decided right there she had 60 minutes before I shut it all down. My name is Lucas Miller. I'm 47 years old, and up until 3 weeks ago, I truly believed I understood the woman I married. I thought our relationship, flawed as it was, still stood on something real and dependable. Turns out, I wasn't her partner at all, I was just the platform she stood on while reaching for something else she wanted more. I built my wealth in commercial real estate. Not the glamorous, Instagram-friendly kind where people flip houses and brag online. I stayed in the background, working quietly and consistently. Strip malls in suburbs that were still growing. Office buildings in overlooked mid-tier cities. Warehouses positioned near distribution hubs that were just beginning to expand. I bought properties no one else was paying attention to, improved them carefully, and let reliable tenants create value for both of us. It wasn't exciting, but it worked. It was predictable. Solid. And it was the kind of business that allowed me to bankroll my wife's dreams without ever hesitating. Her name is Vivian Sterling Miller. She's 39 years old. Razor-sharp, focused, and when she wanted to be, colder than people expected. She came into my life 11 years ago with a teenage daughter named Sophia from her first marriage, a smile that could disarm a room, and a clear vision of building her own management consulting firm. I didn't just fall for her, I dove in headfirst. Vivian was intelligent, ambitious, and she made me feel like my work mattered beyond leases and square footage. Like I was part of something bigger. We had our son, Ethan, when Vivian was 27. He's 12 now. Good kid. Loves soccer. Collects baseball cards. He still hugs me goodnight, even though I'm sure his friends would tease him for it. Sophia is 15 now. Quiet. Thoughtful. She's always watched her mother closely, like she's studying a book she isn't sure she trusts. For the past 3 years, I'd been Vivian's silent partner. Not officially. Not on any documents. But in every way that counted. I covered the startup costs for Sterling Advisory Group, $14.5 million spread across 3 years. Seed money. Operating expenses. Marketing campaigns. Office renovations. I introduced her to executives I knew from my real estate dealings. I paid our household bills so she could pour every dollar she earned back into building her brand. I even helped her recruit Mia Carter, Noah Bennett, and Grace Donovan, 3 smart, driven junior partners who bought into Vivian's vision of a boutique firm that could go toe-to-toe with the big consulting giants. The launch party was supposed to be our moment. That's how she framed it. Our night, she said, kissing my cheek while adjusting her jade green dress in the mirror. I wore a charcoal suit she'd picked out for me the month before. I remember feeling proud. Naively proud. The venue was a renovated loft in downtown Portland. Exposed brick walls. Industrial lighting. Catering by some chef whose name escapes me now. Around 200 guests filled the room. Clients. Prospective clients. Competitors pretending not to assess the new threat. Business reporters scribbling notes. Vivian moved through the crowd like she belonged there, that confident smile never slipping. I stayed near the bar with a bourbon in hand, watching her command the room. Ethan was home with a babysitter. Sophia had chosen to stay back too, saying she had homework. I didn't argue. Then it was time for the speech. Vivian stepped onto the small stage set up near the windows overlooking the city skyline. The chatter died down. She thanked her team. She thanked her mentors. She thanked the clients willing to gamble on a brand new firm. Then she looked straight at me. And I want to thank someone very special, Vivian said, her voice smooth and polished, the same tone she used in boardrooms. My husband, Lucas. Heads turned in my direction. I lifted my glass slightly, expecting the standard acknowledgement given to supportive spouses. Lucas has been what I like to call my test-run husband, she went on. The room froze. Someone stable enough to help me build the foundation I needed. And now that the foundation is finished, it's time for me to build the life I actually want. She reached behind the podium and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. My mind lagged behind the moment. I was still stuck on the words test-run husband. Still watching expressions around the room shift from applause to confusion to uncomfortable curiosity. Vivian walked off the stage, her heels sharp against the hardwood, and placed the envelope in my hands. Up close, her eyes weren't warm. They were bright, focused, and resolute. "These are divorce papers," she said softly, just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Think of this as our first case at Sterling Advisory Group. Dissolving partnerships that no longer serve their purpose." A few people chuckled nervously. Someone near the back actually clapped, probably assuming it was a stunt. I opened the envelope. Legal letterhead. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Filed 4 days earlier. I looked at the signature at the bottom. Hers. Already signed. "You could have handled this privately," I said. Somehow my voice stayed calm. "And miss the impact?" Vivian replied. "This is about statements, Lucas. You taught me that. Every deal. Every partnership. Every ending should matter." I folded the documents neatly, slid them back into the envelope, and tucked it into my jacket pocket. All eyes were on us now. Phones were likely recording. This would be online within the hour. I studied my wife, really studied her, and realized I was looking at someone who had been playing a role for 11 years. "Congratulations on the launch," I said quietly. Then I walked out of the loft, past the brick walls, the expensive cheese platters, and the crowd that had just watched my marriage collapse like entertainment. The valet pulled up my car. I handed him $50, mostly because my hands needed something to do. I sat behind the wheel of my Mercedes, the one Vivian always said was too dull for someone with my net worth, and I didn't drive home. Instead, I headed to a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. I ordered a cup of coffee I never touched and slid into a booth with my laptop open, staring at the screen as everything finally caught up to me. I opened the encrypted files I reserved for situations that actually mattered. The ones Vivian never questioned, because she assumed my days were spent juggling leases and repair schedules. Then I started making phone calls. By the time the sun came up, I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I felt calm and clear-headed. Arriving home early in the morning, the house was quiet. The kids were either still asleep or pretending to be, it was hard to tell. I didn't stop anywhere else. I went straight up to my office on the second floor, the one room Vivian never cared about because it clashed with her vision for the house. Dark wood. A worn leather chair. Shelves lined with binders full of property documents that looked painfully dull to anyone who didn't understand what they were worth. I closed the door and locked it behind me. That habit went back years, to when I first learned in real estate that privacy isn't paranoia. It's protection. My laptop sat exactly where I'd left it the morning before. Yesterday. It felt like a lifetime ago. I powered it on and entered the password Vivian had never once asked about. Why would she? To her, I was just the dependable, unexciting husband managing rental properties while she built something important. The screen came to life. No family photos. No scenic backgrounds. Just black, clean, and functional. A login prompt. I typed in the 16-character code I'd memorized years earlier, and the system unlocked. What Vivian never knew, what she never bothered to ask in 11 years of marriage, was that I didn't just own strip malls and office buildings. I owned the backbone her entire company relied on. The building where Sterling Advisory Group leased its office space? Mine. I'd purchased it through a holding company 3 years earlier, right around the time Vivian first started talking seriously about launching her firm. I'd suggested the location myself. She loved it. Signed a 5-year lease at well below market value because the landlord, one of my shell companies, wanted to support local businesses.
The software platform her team used to manage clients? Licensed through a company where I held equity. I'd introduced her to the CEO at a networking event. She'd received a generous startup discount.
All she had to do was sign the standard agreement.
I pulled those documents up now. Scanned copies of everything. The office lease.
The software licensing contract. The credit line she'd opened with a bank where I'd personally arranged the introduction. And there they were, buried deep in the terms and conditions she'd initialed without reading.
Clauses I'd spent 3 years quietly positioning. Termination rights. Ownership reversions.
Financial guarantees tied to conditions that, after last night, had been breached.
I picked up my phone and made the first call.
My banker, Adrian Clark. 15 years of doing business together.
He answered on the second ring.
Lucas, as Adrian said, his voice rough with early morning fatigue.
I saw the news. Are you okay? The footage from the launch party must have already made its way online.
I need to execute the termination clause on account Series 7, I said.
Effective immediately. A brief pause. And all related accounts, I added. Every automatic payment. Every credit line. Every standing authorization. Everything connected to Sterling Advisory Group. Lucas, that's going to cause serious operational disruption. I know exactly what it's going to cause, I cut in. The question is whether you can do it. Silence again. Longer this time.
Adrian was weighing exposure, legal fallout, and 15 years of trust.
Finally, he spoke. Give me 2 hours. Compliance will need 1 hour, I said. And Adrian, no warning calls to Vivian. This is business, not charity.
Understood, he replied quietly, and the line went dead. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. The foundation Vivian had stood on while calling me her test-run husband was about to vanish.
And I wasn't finished yet.
I switched my phone to airplane mode for exactly 4 hours. Not because I was afraid of what would come in, but because I wanted control.
I wanted every system to execute cleanly. Every payment to fail.
Every credit authorization to bounce, before Vivian even understood what was happening. At 11:30, I turned airplane mode off.
The phone didn't just vibrate.
It convulsed in my hand like something alive and dying. The screen exploded with notifications so fast the numbers blurred.
42 missed calls.
Then a refresh 89. Another refresh 136.
Text messages poured in. First from Vivian. What did you do to the accounts? Call me. Now.
Missed calls started piling up, with urgent messages about banking issues. Vivian was clearly very worried, and her team reached out asking for help.
I didn't respond.
I stayed seated at my desk, coffee growing cold, watching the missed call counter climb past 100. The phone buzzed non-stop.
Voicemails stacked up faster than I could clear them. Then a new name appeared. Leonard Sterling. Vivian's father. Former managing partner at Sterling and Associates. One of the most feared corporate law firms in Oregon.
A man who'd built his reputation staring people down across conference tables. His text was short.
We need to talk. Don't make this uglier than it has to be. I set the phone down and went to make fresh coffee. When I came back 15 minutes later, the missed calls had passed 300. 312. Then 328.
At 336 missed calls, the doorbell rang.
Not frantic. Not desperate. A calm, deliberate ring. The kind that said the person outside wasn't emotional, they were on business. I walked downstairs slowly. Took my time. Let whoever it was wait on my porch while I decided if the conversation was worth having. Through the peephole, I saw Leonard Sterling. 78 years old. Gray wool coat. Silver hair perfectly styled. Hands folded patiently in front of him, like he had nowhere else to be. I opened the door but didn't invite him inside. I just stood there and waited.
Lucas, Leonard said, his voice smooth and practiced, the sound of courtrooms and closed-door negotiations.
Leonard didn't raise his voice.
He didn't rush his words.
That alone told me this wasn't about emotion, it was about leverage.
I know how this looks, he said calmly.
But you and I are rational men. There's no reason this needs to turn public. We can handle it discreetly.
The smile he gave me was smooth and practiced, the kind that had ended courtroom battles before they ever reached a jury. Vivian misjudged the situation, he went on.
I won't deny that. She chose the wrong moment and the wrong setting.
But mistakes can be corrected. What matters now is containing the fallout.
Containing damage for who? I asked. Me or her?
He shifted his weight, barely noticeable, like a chess player adjusting after an unexpected move. I've already spoken with managing partners at 3 firms, he said.
They're willing to structure a buyout. Full reimbursement of what you put in, plus 20%. You walk away clean.
Sterling Advisory stabilizes.
Everyone survives. I didn't put money in, I said. I built the machine.
The lease, the credit facilities, the vendors, the infrastructure, none of it exists without systems I control. For a fraction of a second, his mask cracked.
Just enough. That was when I knew Vivian hadn't told him the truth.
Then let's talk terms, he said quickly, regaining control.
Name your number. I don't want a payout, I replied. I want her to learn what happens when you treat people like scaffolding. His jaw tightened. You're being reckless, Lucas. Vivian has serious legal backing. You're inviting lawsuits. Media attention. Good, I said. Discovery should be fascinating. Especially once we start tracing how our firm was actually funded. I closed the door. No drama. No slam. Just a final, deliberate click.
I stood there long enough to hear him remain on the porch, unmoving.
30 seconds passed.
Then his footsteps retreated down the path.
Upstairs, my phone was still vibrating itself toward death. I let it. Panic needed time to spread.
The foundation was already gone.
Now gravity would do the rest.
By Monday morning, Sterling Advisory was effectively dead. I didn't need dashboards or reports.
The collapse narrated itself through my phone. At 7:15 a.m., Noah Bennett emailed me, careful and restrained. Lucas, I hope we can discuss this professionally.
Several vendor contracts have been suspended, and we're trying to understand the full scope of the issue. What he meant was, we're sinking.
Please save us. I deleted it. At 8:30, Grace Donovan tried empathy.
I know things are complicated, but clients are asking questions.
Is there any path forward that protects everyone involved? Translation, they're leaving, and we're about to lose everything. Deleted.
By 9, industry forums were buzzing.
Someone posted in a Portland consulting group asking why Sterling Advisory's office was locked and their website offline. Speculation followed. Rumors. Fake insiders.
Then one comment cut through the noise. Heard the founder's husband pulled the plug after she served him divorce papers at the launch party. Another reply came seconds later.
Play stupid games.
Win stupid prizes.
I closed the forum and checked my email.
There was one message that mattered.
Isabel Hayes. Vivian's assistant.
Subject line, confidential, please read.
I opened it. Mr. Miller. I don't know if this will reach you, but I think you should see this. Mrs. Miller asked me last week to hide certain financial documents.
She said it was standard practice, but it didn't feel right.
I've attached copies. I don't want to be involved in this. The files loaded. Unauthorized transfers. Loan applications with forged signatures that mimicked mine well enough to pass a casual review.
A draft operating agreement listing Vivian as sole owner, no mention of my capital, my backing, or my role.
This hadn't been spontaneous. It had been planned.
The divorce wasn't emotional.
It wasn't impulsive. It was logistics.
I forwarded everything to my attorney with one sentence.
Add fraud. My phone rang. Vivian. I ignored it. She called again. Then again.
I answered on the fourth attempt.
What do you want? I asked.
Lucas, please, she said. The confidence was gone.
We need to talk. In person. Whatever's happening with the accounts, we can fix it. There's nothing to fix, I said. The agreements you signed contain termination clauses.
You violated them when you filed for divorce without notifying your financial partners.
Partners, she snapped. You're my husband. Not according to you, I said. Saturday night made that clear. Now I'm just a creditor.
The firm will collapse, she said.
People will lose jobs. Clients.
Your people.
Your clients. Your firm, I cut in. You wanted independence. This is what it costs.
You're doing this to hurt me, she said, her voice breaking.
No, I replied. I'm doing this because you forgot something. I paused. Foundations don't just support buildings. They decide when to let them fall. I hung up. Blocked her number. Blocked Leonard's. Blocked every contact tied to Sterling Advisory. Silence followed.
I opened a blank document on my laptop, not to vent, not to rage, but to plan. The firm was gone. But Vivian still had one thing left.
The house. The one remodeled with my money.
Furnished to her taste. Located exactly where she wanted.
A house titled, very intentionally, in my name alone. Wednesday morning brought confirmation. Not from Vivian.
From the State Business Registry. Sterling Advisory Group's business license had been officially suspended while regulators sorted through unpaid vendor claims and unresolved credit disputes.
The notice wasn't hidden or confidential, it was public record.
Anyone who cared to look could find it, including clients.
Especially clients.
That morning, I was standing in my kitchen with a mug of coffee when Ethan padded downstairs for breakfast. He was 12, still wearing his soccer pajamas, his hair sticking up in every direction like he'd lost a fight with his pillow. He grabbed a bowl, poured cereal, then looked up at me.
Dad, where's Mom? She's staying somewhere else for a bit, I said. I kept it simple. Honest.
Something a kid his age could understand.
Because of the divorce?
He asked, casually, the same tone he'd used to ask if it was going to rain. I paused and studied him.
You already know about that.
Sophia told me, he said, crunching cereal. She said Mom did something really mean at her party and that you two aren't together anymore.
Sophia.
15 years old and sharp as hell. She'd probably figured out more than I ever realized.
Maybe more than I had myself. That's basically it, I said. Ethan nodded and ate quietly for a few seconds.
Then he looked up again.
Are you sad?
The question caught me off guard.
I actually had to think about it.
Really think.
No, I said finally. I'm not sad. I'm tired. But not sad, he pressed. No. Good, he said. Mom was always on her phone anyway. Kids notice more than we think. A lot more. Later that afternoon, my attorney called.
His tone was professional, but there was a sharp edge of satisfaction underneath it. Lucas, the forensic accountant, finished the preliminary review, he said.
Those loan applications with your name on them? The signatures are forged and not even well. How bad? I asked. Bad enough that any handwriting expert could confirm it in under an hour.
I leaned back in my chair.
How much did she take out? 2.3 million, Adrian said. Across 4 different financial institutions.
She leveraged your business credit to get favorable terms, then routed the funds into Sterling Advisory operating accounts.
Something cold settled into my chest. It wasn't rage. It wasn't shock. It was recognition.
She'd been stealing from me while sleeping next to me.
File criminal charges, I said. Everything that applies. Fraud. Identity theft. All of it.
There was a pause. You understand this will be public, Adrian said.
Very public. Are you prepared for that?
Our personal issues became very public, attracting a lot of attention, I said.
She can live with the consequences being public too. Another pause. Then, understood.
I'll have everything filed by close of business. By that evening, 3 of Vivian's junior partners had reached out.
Not to her. To me.
Mia Carter sent a carefully crafted email, every word measured.
Mr. Miller, I'm exploring opportunities outside of Sterling Advisory. If you're considering any new ventures, I'd appreciate the chance to discuss potential collaboration. Noah Bennett didn't bother with polish. The ship's sinking, and I'm not going down with it. Coffee this week?
Grace Donovan's message was short and raw.
I should have asked more questions. I'm sorry. Can we talk? They already knew. The firm was finished. Vivian was radioactive.
And I was the one with the capital, the credibility, and the connections to build something else.
I replied to all 3 with the same message. Friday. 10 a.m. My office. Bring your client lists.
Friday morning, Mia, Noah, and Grace sat across from me in my home office, looking like people who'd barely escaped a disaster.
Which, in a way, they had. Mia spoke first.
She was 32, sharp, efficient, no wasted motion. Mr. Miller, I want to be clear about why we're here.
We believed in what Sterling Advisory could become.
We didn't know how it was being funded or what Vivian was doing behind the scenes.
I know, I said. You're good at what you do. That's why you're sitting here. Noah leaned forward. So what are you offering? A real firm, I said. Fair equity. Transparent financing. No games. No surprises. They listened closely. You bring your expertise and your clients. I provide the capital and the structure. We build something that doesn't implode when one person decides to play power games. Grace studied me for a long moment. What's the catch? No catch, I said. But I hold controlling interest. 60%. The 3 of you split 30 evenly. The remaining 10% is performance-based, tied directly to firm growth. You want more equity, you earn it by building value. They exchanged looks. This wasn't a desperation play. It was a legitimate offer. Far better than starting over at established firms where they'd spend years climbing someone else's ladder. What about Vivian? Mia asked quietly. What about her? I said. She's going to fight this. Fight you.
She'll call it revenge.
Sabotage. Let her, I said.
There are forensic accountants, paper trails, and criminal charges already in motion.
She can tell whatever story she wants. The evidence tells a different one. Noah nodded slowly. When do we start? Monday, I said. I've already secured office space downtown. New building. Better location. We'll call it Miller Strategic Group. A clean slate.
They looked at one another, then back at me.
We're in, Mia said. The other 2 nodded. We shook hands. Professional. Straightforward. No drama.
After they left, I sat alone at my desk and reviewed the documents my attorney had prepared.
Articles of incorporation. Operating agreements. Partnership structures. This wasn't revenge. Revenge is emotional, sloppy, short-lived.
This was replacement. I was building what Vivian thought she was building, except this time, it would actually stand.
My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia.
Dad, Mom tried to pick me up from school today.
I told her I'm staying with you. She got upset. Just wanted you to know. I replied immediately. Thank you for telling me. You're safe here. 3 dots appeared. I know. Love you, Dad.
15 years old, and she'd already chosen a side. Not because I asked her to, but because she'd watched her mother closely for years and reached her own conclusions. The foundation was gone. The firm was dead. But something better was already forming. And Vivian was about to learn that the quiet man she once called a test-run husband had been building empires while she'd been building brands. 2 weeks after the criminal filings, the news broke exactly the way I expected. The Portland Business Journal ran it as their lead story.
Former consulting firm founder faces fraud charges.
Vivian Sterling faced serious allegations of financial misconduct.
Reports detailed the situation clearly and factually, outlining months of improper activity. Now the proof was out in the open. Bank statements, handwriting analyses, forensic reports, everything laid bare.
I was at the Miller Strategic Group office when Mia came over, tablet in hand. She tapped the screen and turned it toward me.
The article was already live.
We'd only been open for a week, and somehow, we'd already inherited 3 of Sterling Advisory's former clients.
Plus 2 completely new ones.
She's going to pin this on you, Mia said quietly. She already is, I replied without hesitation. Vivian's lawyer had sent a statement to the press the day before, painting me as vindictive, claiming I was using my resources to ruin her career out of spite.
Noah wheeled his chair closer. Yeah, I saw it, he said. It's not landing well. Comments are brutal, he added. Everyone remembers that launch party video. He wasn't exaggerating.
That video of Vivian handing me divorce papers while calling me her test-run husband had gone viral.
Local news covered it. Industry forums tore it apart.
When the news about her fraud charges hit, the dots connected immediately. One comment I saw summed it up perfectly: she humiliated her husband at a party funded by his money, then stole millions in his name.
That's not revenge. That's accountability. Grace walked into the room with coffee while we went over client proposals.
Lucas, she said, I just got a call from the prosecutor's office. They want all 3 of us to come in and give statements about what we saw at Sterling Advisory.
And you told them?
We're cooperating fully, Grace said.
Emails, documents, transaction records, everything to establish a clear timeline. I nodded. Exactly as it needed to be. Clear. Documented. Unassailable.
My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Dad, Mom came to school again. Security had to escort her out. She was yelling that you turned me against her.
Embarrassing.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that, I texted back.
Are you okay? Yeah. But everyone was staring. Can you pick me up instead of the bus? I'll be there at 3. This was Vivian now, desperate to control the narrative, willing to create chaos in front of anyone who would watch. The woman who had spent 11 years polishing her perfect public image was unraveling in public view. Later, Leonard Sterling called. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me.
Lucas, he said, sounding unusually drained. I'm calling as Vivian's father, not her lawyer.
Off the record. I'm listening. She made mistakes.
Serious ones, he admitted. But these charges could destroy what's left of her career.
Is there a way to resolve this before trial? What do you have in mind?
I asked, already suspecting. She pleads to lesser charges, pays back the money with interest, does probation, record gets expunged after completion. She rebuilds her life.
And you don't testify. You mean, don't provide additional evidence and let them work with what they already have? Leonard was quiet for a moment. I stayed quiet too. Not because I was tempted, but because I wanted him to understand why my answer would be no. Leonard, your daughter didn't just steal from me, I said carefully. She defrauded 4 banks. Forged legal documents. Built a business on criminal activity. This isn't personal anymore. This is about the law. The law has discretion, he said. So do I replied. I'm letting justice take its course. Vivian wanted to end our partnership, fine. But she doesn't get to commit crimes and walk away just because you still have connections. There was a long silence. Then, quietly, I thought you were better than this. I am better than this, I said. That's why I'm not the one facing charges. I hung up. 3 weeks later, we officially launched Miller's Strategic Group. Not a party. A professional reception at a downtown hotel. 50 guests. Current clients, potential clients, industry contacts I'd worked with over the years. No champagne. No grand speeches. Just real conversations about real business. Mia handled the presentations. She was sharper than I would have been anyway. The message was clear, this wasn't about ego, it was about building a legitimate firm. Ethan and Sophia came with me. I asked if they wanted to attend, they both said yes. Ethan in a button-down and tie, trying very hard to look grown-up. Sophia in a simple dress, staying close, those eyes of hers observing everything. A reporter from the Business Journal approached during a quiet moment, recorder in hand. Mr. Miller, a few questions about the transition from Sterling Advisory to Miller Strategic? Keep them brief, I said. Some say this is revenge. Punishing your ex-wife by taking her team and clients. Your response? I met her gaze. Look at the numbers. Our client retention. Growth projections. Transparent funding. Legitimate practices. If that's revenge, then every successful business is revenge against poor management. She scribbled notes. One more, your wife's fraud charges. Do you feel responsible? My wife made her choices, I said calmly. Forging documents, committing fraud, building a business illegally, that was all her. I just won't shield her from the consequences. Last question, she said. If you could go back to the launch party, would you do anything differently? I thought about it. Really thought. No, I said. That party showed me exactly who I was married to. Sometimes the truth hurts, but clarity matters more than comfort. The reporter thanked me and moved on, and I watched her walk away. A small hand slid into mine. Dad, you handled that really well, Sophia whispered. Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual. You mean I didn't freak out? You didn't yell. You didn't get angry. You just told the truth. 15 years old, and already realizing that dignity often carries more weight than volume. The event wound down around 8 o'clock. Clean. Professional. Successful. 2 new clients committed, 3 more serious prospects on the table. Noah, Mia, and Grace all seemed quietly satisfied. This wasn't a stunt. This was real. On the ride home, Ethan slept in the back seat. Sophia sat up front, her gaze following the lights and skyline of Portland as we drove. Do you think Mom will ever apologize? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Some people never apologize. They just move on and expect everyone else to forget. That's sad, she said. It is, I agreed. But we can't control other people's actions. We can only control how we respond. You responded by building something better, she said. She was right. I had. Not for revenge. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. Out of simple recognition that when someone destroys what you've built, you have 2 choices, sit in the ruins, or start over. I chose to start over. And this time, The foundation was mine. The plea hearing came on a gray Thursday morning. I didn't attend. Victor sent me updates via text. Vivian pled guilty to 2 counts of bank fraud and 1 count of identity theft. The judge accepted it. Sentencing was scheduled in 30 days. I was in the Miller strategic office when the updates arrived. Mia was presenting to a potential client. Noah was negotiating with a manufacturer in Eugene.
Grace was reviewing contracts for a healthcare client.
Normal work.
Solid work.
Work that didn't require drama or deceit to survive.
Another text buzzed. Leonard Sterling had spoken to the press, claiming I orchestrated a vindictive campaign against his daughter. He expected me to respond.
I didn't. Didn't need to.
The court record spoke for itself. Vivian's guilty plea spoke for itself.
Everything else was just background noise from people who couldn't handle accountability. That evening, Sophia quietly came into my home office.
She'd been thoughtful lately, quiet, not sad.
"Dad, I need to tell you something," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "I'm listening," I said, closing my laptop. "Mom called me yesterday," she said. "From a number I didn't recognize."
I answered before I realized it was her.
I kept my face neutral. "What did she want?"
"She wanted me to testify at her sentencing," Sophia said.
"Say that you manipulated me. That you turned me against her.
That she's a good mom who just made one mistake." Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, voice steady.
"And you told her?"
"I told her the truth," she said.
"You didn't manipulate me."
"I saw her ignore us for years while she built her career.
She made choices. Now she has to face them." Then she hung up.
15 years old, and she already understood something most adults never learn: loyalty isn't automatic.
It's earned. "I'm proud of you," I said.
"She's gonna hate me," Sophia said quietly.
"Maybe," I admitted.
"But you'll respect yourself.
That's what matters in the long run." She nodded, relaxing a little. Later, Ethan asked, "Are we bad kids for not defending Mom?" "No," I said. "We're honest kids." "There's a difference."
"There is," he agreed. Before leaving, Sophia paused at the door.
"Miller Strategic is doing really well, right?" "Really well," I confirmed. "Good," she said. "Because it proves something. You didn't need her. You were always building."
She just stood on top and took credit.
After she left, I sat back and thought about it. Sophia was right. For 11 years, I'd been the foundation while Vivian played architect.
I funded her dreams, cleared obstacles, supported her ambitions. And when she didn't need me anymore, she discarded me publicly, cruelly, without a second thought. But foundations don't vanish just because someone stops standing on them.
They remain. Solid. Ready to support the next thing worth building.
Miller Strategic was built on that same foundation.
My capital. My network. My reputation. Only this time, I wasn't invisible. I was present. Visible. An equal partner with Mia, Noah, and Grace. 3 weeks later, the sentencing was finalized: 5 years supervised probation, $200,000 restitution, community service. A permanent felony record. Vivian's consulting career was over. Her reputation destroyed.
Her father's attempts to spin the story had failed. And I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication. Just quiet acknowledgement that justice had run its course. The foundation had held. Everything built on lies had fallen.
And I was still standing.
18 months after that launch party, I watched Mia present to a Fortune 500 client in our now larger office.
12 employees, a better location, a borrowed assistant.
Not through drama, not through stunts or publicity, but through solid work, strong relationships, and integrity.
The client signed a 2-year contract worth $3.
For $1 million, our biggest deal yet. Afterward, Mia, Noah, and Grace gathered in my office.
We should celebrate, Noah said. Dinner, I suggested. Somewhere nice. Bring your families. Families? Grace laughed. Look at you getting sentimental. But we did. That Friday, we all sat together at a restaurant overlooking the Willamette River.
And for the first time in years, it felt like the future we were building was entirely ours.
Mia's husband, an engineer who actually listened when she talked about work. Noah's girlfriend, a teacher with a quick wit. Grace's partner, a graphic designer who had helped shape our branding.
And my kids, my real foundation. Ethan, 13 now, had chosen a blazer himself. Sophia, 16, carried a quiet confidence that wasn't there when all of this began. During dinner, Ethan leaned across the table.
Dad, did you see Mom's LinkedIn? No, I said. Why would I?
She's working at a coffee shop, he said.
Not managing it, just working there. I glanced at Sophia.
She met my eyes and gave a small shrug, as if she'd already known and decided it wasn't worth mentioning.
That's honest work, I said. There's nothing wrong with it. I know, Ethan replied.
It's just weird. She used to seem so important. She thought she was important, Sophia corrected softly.
There's a difference. After dinner, we walked along the waterfront. The city lights danced on the water, stretching long and steady across the dark surface. Ethan ran ahead, letting himself get lost in the simple joys of being a kid. Sophia walked beside me, hands tucked into her jacket pockets.
You did good tonight, Dad, she said quietly.
No, I said. We did good. All of us. You, Ethan, me. We figured out how to be okay.
Better than okay, Sophia said.
We're happy. I don't think we ever really were before. She was right.
The marriage had been safe.
Comfortable. Predictable.
But it had never been truly happy. Now, standing there on the waterfront with my kids, and with my business partners and their families nearby, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace.
Not because I'd beaten Vivian, or proven anything to her.
But because I had stopped living in her story.
I had started living mine. Miller's strategic wasn't revenge.
It was proof that real foundations outlast facades. That quiet strength endures longer than loud ambition.
That sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't retaliation, it's building something better and moving forward. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I'm sorry for what I did. I hope someday you can forgive me. Vivian. I read it once. Then deleted it. Not out of cruelty. Not out of anger. Forgiveness isn't something you can ask for in a text after 18 months of silence. And it wasn't something I needed to give. I'd already moved forward. She would have to find her own way. Ethan called from up ahead, pointing at something glinting in the water. Sophia jogged to catch up with him. I followed, leaving the phone in my pocket. Leaving the past behind. Where it belonged.